I see it.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Rob. So the first question is, my wife was emotionally abused by her mother as a child and sexually abused by a family friend from the ages of 9 to 12. And it started with him paying attention to her and flirting, which she liked because she craved better attention than she received from her mother. But this friendly flirting progressed to touching and sexual contact, which she didn't like, and finally forced rape, which she felt helpless to stop and too ashamed to report. She has
Sure.
abused alcohol for her entire life and has cheated on me 5 times over 25 years, repeating a similar pattern as her sexual abuse. Harmless texting that turns into
Right.
flirting. Harmless
Harmless in
texting.
quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then
Harmless.
meeting, then sex. My question, I've heard how alcoholics who think they can just have one drink are unable to stop drinking after the first one, is in their bloodstream. It doesn't even have to be in our bloodstream. It just has to be in our mind because they are now a chemically altered person and their addiction is now in
Right.
control. Could the same rule apply with a female sex addict with unresolved childhood trauma like my wife? And I don't think it has to be just female. I mean, this is getting really specific, but I think we're going to talk about
It's
it more
okay.
general. But
This is
a
every
private,
client I have, only
yes,
male, right?
where if a man starts a private conversation with her, the excitement this generates would be like a drug. And now she is helpless to stop the same pattern of texting, flirting, meeting, and sex. I asked because it happened 2 months after my wife finished treatment with a man she met there. Oh gosh, called her rehab buddy. And she started texting him after about recovery topics, then met in person AA meetings, and last one of which led to a conversation in the car that ended in sex in the back seat. I will do whatever I can to find a way to help my wife prevent this pattern, like AA helps her prevent taking the first drink. Is this possible? And if so, what would you recommend? So that's a lot. And I would like to take out I mean, like you said, it's every client. So it isn't just, a female or male.
Right. Yes. Would you mind? I want to just get a glass of water. I'll just be a second.
Okay.
And you have some thoughts about this one.
I
know
do
you
have a lot
So
of thoughts about this. So I want to start with as we did air quotes, harmless texting. There's so much here. We have a treatment program for men. There's a reason why it's for men only. When Dr. Rob was
Right.
working at previous organizations and they were doing treatment for chemicals, substance use disorder, and they were doing it mixed gender, as in the role he was in, he worked to have them separate that, and it changed things dramatically. He has shared, and I'm sure he's still within earshot. He shared that
Yes.
the female clients quit wearing makeup, quit dressing up for the men, all of these things, and we're able to really focus on treatment. Going to AA, you get the same gender sponsor. You don't get that's called 13th stepping. So there's so much, that is like if the treatment program set them up as a rehab buddy, like I cringe if they chose that's part of their collective problems. I don't know what his issues are, doesn't matter. But it isn't, you talk about once the alcohol gets in her system, it's got, it's got almost nothing to do with the substance getting into your system. All of this behavior is going to the same deep wounding. And so however we, whether it's a behavior or a substance or food or gaming or whatever it is, it's all looking to fill that hole in the soul and numb out and escape and all of those things. And so what I hear, unfortunately, is someone who has not gotten enough tools yet to be able to, have a solid recovery plan, and is setting herself up to, with a male buddy. I mean, there's plenty, trust me, there's plenty of really solid females in sobriety, with good sobriety in AA meetings. So there are other choices, but I don't feel like she's had enough help. Now, one more thing before I turn it over to Dr. Rob. I don't know who she's working with for a qualified therapist. Since she's exited treatment, I don't know what their recovery plan was, but not looking at this holistically is problematic. All of these behaviors and whatever else she may be doing or using. So when clients come to our treatment program, men only, we're looking holistically across all of the behaviors and ways that they can use to, have compulsive behaviors and numb out, because addressing all of those and having a plan for managing the feelings, having the ability to have it go to our executive brain and not just compulsively act out. But I can, as a person in recovery, when she first started texting was the first time she gave herself, maybe even before that, it was when she gave herself permission to have sex in the back seat. I mean, like, when you take that first little baby step into a dangerous area, it's a problem. We talk in our Sex Addiction 101 work group for men that starts on Saturday. There's a 3-circle plan, and she's already in the middle circle, which is the danger zone, when she's starting to reach out to men that are not you. Inner circle, obviously, when you're acting out on that is, but she doesn't have enough tools. And I don't know that she's got enough support, like with a qualified professional, if she's going to AA meetings, SLAA meetings, getting female sponsors, on, across the board, but, so it's not your job to help her prevent this. It's your job to have healthy boundaries for you, so that her behavior, you can't fix her. You can be there and take care of you and support her, but you can't fix her. That was a lot, Dr. Rob. What do you got to say?
Well, the answer is yes. I mean, really, the answer to all of that is yes. First of all, I just want to say that I think this, I assume it's a man, articulates, because it could be a woman, right? Articulates.
I think it's a man, but
yeah. First of all, I just want to say to you, this is beautifully articulated. The way you describe the childhood abuse, especially, like, that is how sex offending happens. Sex offenders look for the vulnerable child who's not getting a lot of attention, and of course they want adult attention, so they start to look to that person to pay attention to them, and then they use them. So that kind of seduction is exactly, it's called grooming, and that's exactly what happens. So yes, I think what you describe qualifies every man I work with for sex addiction. And I ran a women's program. I created the first one in the country. And I can tell you that this is every woman's story too, except usually the women have more profound sexual abuse. The men don't always have that. But everything you describe is exactly what would happen to someone, in my opinion, who has this kind of history. But the answer is, so I guess I want to say this. I can do great treatment. I do great treatment. Tammy and I, I think we do our best to support people. We both have a lot of experience, her in when you're calling, me for the work that gets done and the staff and her recommendations, all of it. But I have to say, with all our miracle abilities, Tammy and I can make a few miracles happen. The one thing that I cannot create, that she cannot create, is motivation. This woman has to not want to be in this situation anymore. Her consequences have to be bad enough. What do they say? When the pain of recovery is less than the pain of acting out, then you'll start to stop. So one of the things you didn't talk about, what consequences is she having? How are you and her family and her life being affected, and how does she experience those consequences? Because you read like a spouse who really wants to help, who really wants to do things. You're a very pro-dependent spouse, but what actions do you need to take care of yourself? In other words, I hope you're not having sex with her, because who knows if she has STDs or not. So there's all of that in terms of what in her environment would motivate her for change. And that is something you might want to see a therapist about, is how to work on that. Or if you call Tammy TAMI at Seeking Integrity, we send out a lot of information. We certainly know therapists who work with female sex addicts. We might know a few treatment programs. One of the things that Tammy was talking about, which is one of the things, it's one of the reasons why I really believe in our program, or in Seeking Integrity for residential, and we can't treat your wife because we don't treat women. It's that we can look at both. And I think that's very difficult. If someone goes into a drug and alcohol program, even the best one, if they have this kind of history, they're going to be flirting, they're going to be hitting on, they're going to have someone they're fantasizing about, whatever, because they're not talking about it. And no one in a group of alcoholics in a treatment center is going to talk about their sexual behavior, because that means they're the pervert. They're the one that everyone's looking at like you're such a slut or whatever. So it really does require an environment that looks at all three, at trauma, at sexual behavior and at drug treatment. And by the way, I don't know why she was in drug treatment, but it is also very typical for someone with this history, not only to be suppressing, and that's what she's doing, suppressing the feelings about her history and finding a way to escape with sex, but she's also doing with drugs. So it feels like only half the problem has been solved. And one of the things that I think is important for us to teach, which we do teach the guys, is that they can get sober, but where they go for sex, who they hook up for sex, what situation they end up using, or how they feel about what they were doing leads to using. So number one, she has to want to conquer this, and it can't be your job to motivate her or change things, or she has to figure out that that's important. Now, you may not want to sleep with her, may not want her in the house, may not want to stay with her. I don't know. But those kinds of consequences are often the ones that drive people to want to get help. If it were me, I would, and if you have the resources, I would look for a treatment program that covers these issues, because she's not sober. By the way, I don't believe that the treatment center wasn't watching out for her and she somehow ended up with this guy. I just don't believe that. I believe that she's lying and she set all this up and wanted to do it in the first place. So, addicts lie if their mouths are moving, and she's a co-addicted to both drugs and sexual behavior and romance. It's about fantasy and intensity. What you describe is a drug, whether I'm gambling or I'm sexing or I'm using porn or I'm spending money or gaming. All of those are intensity-based, arousing behaviors that allow us to escape into fantasy. And so what I didn't see is Tammy would also said, where are the 12-step programs for sexual recovery? Where's SLAA? Where's where are the programs gender separate that she can go to? And by the way, there are lots of gender separate AA meetings for women. And if I would, if it were me, I would say to this woman as a therapist, I would say to her, you know what? You don't get to go any more gender mixed meetings. That's not okay. If I was a therapist and I were dealing with her, that's what I would say. If you want to go to meetings and you're really dedicated to that, then you don't need any men around, considering your history. And then she has to look at this piece, she has to be willing. And what I hear in your letter is a lot of willingness on your side to investigate, to be curious. And God knows, I know, and I believe that you do that out of love. But love is not enough to protect yourself and your family because she's creating a nightmare for herself and everyone else. What I was going to say, one more thing: drugs, gender separate, motivation, meetings. Yeah, I think I got it. Tammy, and she needs more women in her life, women who can support her, women who can guide her, if the phone rings and it's a guy. So I agree with Tammy. She has nothing. You observed and get a lot of this. I wonder how much she gets and how much she understands of this, and that it is an illness, that is part of her illness. So she has to deal with both. By the way, if you like, I would suggest, if you have the resources, that you two do a consultation with me. And I do this a lot with the other end, which is I have a guy who's acting out and his wife is just, what do I do? And then I sit with them and we talk about the problem. It's no different with the two of you. I can sit and have a meaningful conversation with her that will both confront and push her into other steps that you may not feel comfortable with. That's kind of my job in consults. I say, you might not like me, but I hope you respect me, because I'm going to tell you the truth. And it often motivates people for change. So you can certainly get in a consultation. And Tammy knows a lot of resources for female sex addicts. And there are books, by the way, that we can also refer you to.
And
so
podcasts.
you're in and podcasts. So you're in the right ballpark. You just have to set up a situation that is going to motivate and have her take a look at it. And if she doesn't want to, then you have to look at what kind of relationship do you want? I've talked to people who say, I don't care what they do. I don't care. I'll just look the other way. I just want to be with them. Great. I've had other people say, no, if this continues, I'm done, no matter what. It depends on where you are and what you're willing to put up with. And I do hear a little bit too much of interpretation and curiosity from you, but I wonder where she's at with all of that. So
I have two more things. We have a female drop-in group, a female sex and love and porn, because females use porn too, on Tuesday nights. Yeah, free on our website. And there's a men's betrayed partner group also on Tuesday nights, free. And then the other thing I was thinking is, all of the stuff that she's been through, it's part of her history. it does not have to define her future. There are lots of people who have been abused in all kinds of ways, and not everybody becomes an addict. So it isn't, if this happens, then addiction. That was her maladaptive coping mechanism. And, I understand all of that and everything, but leaning on that as, oh, that's the reason and I can't get past it is basically
Bullshit.
subjecting the two of, well, true, thank you, but it's subjecting the two of you to, this is always going to happen, and I don't use
Right.
always and nevers very often, but it doesn't have to be that way. She hasn't had enough help yet, and she's getting away with too much, BS. Like Dr. Rob said, if her lips are moving, she's lying. Oh, my treatment center gave me a recovery buddy who's a male.
By the way, Tammy said something, you just said something that I thought was really important about recovery. Hold on a second. Why don't we just move on?
Well, I
There's
said,
so many questions.
Okay. All right. Okay. As an essay, I told my adult children and their spouses of my addiction. My son-in-law has seemingly cut me out of his life. He is a sheriff and very much a Christian guy. Any suggestions on healing that relationship?
Is the book out, Tammy? Is that book out yet on children?
It should be. I will look it up. You keep talking. I will find
There's
it.
a gentleman, Dr. Ken Adams, who is a colleague, and I think I've done 2 podcasts with. He talks about enmeshment with parents, and he talks about how children are affected when they find out. The other thing he's teaching about is how children are affected by finding this out. And there's a book, and I'm absolutely sure Tammy got some kind of flyer today for children who want to attend. But that may not be where he is at, which is wanting to learn more about this or look at this more. And by the way, I want to say to all of you, this is why we don't tell them. This is a perfect example, because now, not only is your son-in-law cutting you out of his life, but if his mother, your wife, ever says to him, well, I'm thinking about working it out, or you hear her son is going to say, why? How could you do that to my mother? He's going to take sides. And so, if it is possible at all, I guess I'm saying this to the rest of you, is be very careful. Do tell them there's something wrong. We are struggling. Dad's gone and gotten some help. We are not sure about our relationship. It's been many years. But don't tell them about your sex life, because what happens is, who wants to hear about their parents' sex life? And I have had kids, I said this last week, say, I don't know if I want to get married now, because if my dad could do this, then, or my mom could do this, or I'm not sure if I want to have children, because I'll always be looking at them for an addiction. So it doesn't just affect them in terms of you, it affects how they look at the world, how they look at relationships, all of that kind of stuff. Tammy, I wonder if you have thoughts about the second part, which is, it doesn't matter whether he's a Christian or sheriff. I mean, what that tells me is how his worldview, but how about healing the relationship? What thoughts? Because I don't know if that's healable in that way, or if this is the person who can do it.
Well, yeah, I know. And to me, and you didn't indicate how long you've been on the recovery journey. You didn't indicate if you're just abstinence and you haven't really changed, then there's a lot more work to do. Here, if you're working the steps, this is part of the steps that, we take care of us. We do the cleanup, for us. And then as people start to see us being different and holding space different, then they can come back in relationship. But unfortunately, you've got no control, and you pursuing and going, but wait, will probably just drive it wider. So I think, unfortunately, the damage is done having told them. So now it's just absolutely doing your work, your recovery work. Really do steps 4 through 9, get clean up, make amends where you can, but amends are not, I'm sorry. So please make sure that you're doing all of the work that you possibly can, to be different. Then, as things change, unfortunately, he probably is ill-informed and doesn't understand that addiction is not offender. There are some offenders and that, it overlaps, but many people automatically go to, as Dr. Rob used the term, pervert or something, and that's not the case. So, it's from a place of brokenness, but you are not going to be the person who can convince them. All you can do is learn to live in your integrity.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, Tammy, because at this point, all you can do is be an example. There is nothing you can do to heal this relationship. First of all, it's not your job; it's their job. And what could you possibly say? I'm hoping we get along, even though I cheated and ruined your mom's life. Oh, and by the way, I crossed all of your beliefs and values in the process. And that way, you're all about protecting people, and I write it. I mean, there's no way you could ever. And what Tammy's talking about in the 12 steps is, at some point, and not now, you can make an amends for this. It doesn't mean that he will ever forgive you, but you do it for yourself, to have a clean soul and to get it out of you and to find another level of your healing. But I do want everybody to hear this, because we have 42 people in the room. This person said, as an SA, I told my adult children and their spouses of my addiction. There is nothing in any of our literature or anything that is suggested to us that we must tell our children. I've never heard that anywhere. So I only say that, and bless you. I know you did your best. I know that you didn't mean to hurt people or yourself, but I just want everyone to know that there's no requirement as an SA. What the requirement is about is showing up a program, being sober, growing your healing, doing the steps, but there's nothing requirement on any level. And by the way, if you're talking about your 10th step, which is, as an addict, that's not what we do. As an addict, we say, I think I've hurt you. And I'm really sorry that I hurt you. And these are the things I did to hurt you. And I know I can't ever take them back, but I just want you to know I'm making a sincere apology. And then you leave it alone. Part of the 12-step process is, I don't get to be invested in the outcome. I don't get to be invested in, I apologize, and then you forgive me. All I can do is say my part. And in this particular situation, I wouldn't say anything. I will tell you, Thanksgiving is not going to be fun. And Christmas is not going to be fun either, because you will not see these people. And if they have children, you're not going to see them either. And this is also another harm to your spouse, who now she or he has to deal with their children, who have all these beliefs about what, they're going to say, you should leave him. And how, anyway, it's a big mess. Don't do it. I'm sorry you did it. Get support. And just know there's not a lot you can do.
Don't relapse. This is what you can do.
Bed.
Work your steps. Don't relapse. And oh shoot, there was something you said about it's not just the family at holiday time. I don't remember. It's all okay.
We're so glad, Tammy. I'm so glad that I'm not the only one who forgets things. You made my day.
No, there you go. I just did it for you. I'm suffering from premature ejaculation. I went 60 days without sex last year after my wife's discovery of my behavior. And when we became sexually active again, I would climax in minutes, which is unusual for me. This is still happening. Is there a reason for this? Is this common? Now, he doesn't give age, and I don't know if he's been to a medical doctor. So,
well, we don't know anything about recovery therapy, none of that, just to say it. So, first of all, 60 days. Sometimes we do ask you to take a time out, and often we do. It's not forever, and there is a purpose to it, and it's not to reset your brain. It is more, there are many, many reasons why we do sometimes encourage that, often. I don't have an answer for you, because I'll tell you, the first thing, I'm a sexologist. First thing I do is tell you to go to see a doctor and get checked out, go see a urologist, because you just don't know if there's something physical going on. I don't know either, but that's the first step. The other thing is, it crosses my mind that if you are acting out a lot, that, if you're looking at porn every day and masturbating, when you decide to have sex with your partner, it takes longer because you've had 3 orgasms that day or 3 orgasms that week. And so, literally it takes longer. So it may well be that you had so much sexual acting out that when that ended, you actually have all this excitement rushing up at you when you are sexual with your partner in ways that you didn't experience before. There are people who, I want to say there are people who can help you with this, but I'm very cautious because a lot of those people would not support your recovery. So I think seeing the right therapist who does understand how to work with these issues. You have a sexual problem. We call it premature ejaculation. Okay, lots of people have that problem. By the way, there are all kinds of things that people do. They use numbing creams. They do all kinds of things, but I would see a doctor first. When I want to play around with that part of me and I'm a sex addict, I think I better get instruction. By the way, talk to your sponsor. I hope you talk to your sponsor about this. I hope you've talked to your wife about this. It's the worst thing in the world if you don't. So anyway, Tammy, do you have that's all the thoughts I have. I ran out. Do you have anything else?
Well, no, but I always think, yeah, communicating with your spouse honestly, and just, being willing to be vulnerable, because that's the opposite of addiction, is being willing to be vulnerable. And, and even saying, I'm afraid, I'm afraid that this is going to happen. And what can we do? Or can I say, take, pause, hit the pause button. So I would really communicate with your partner, but I would also really, schedule a medical doctor evaluation. If you need a name of a therapist, email me, Tammy, Tami at Seeking Integrity, but tell me how long you've been, because I heard the 60 days last year, but like, how long have you been on this journey? So I need more information in order to point you to the right therapist and things too. So, okay. Anything else?
I want to add that sex is not just about penetration. And even though you may have a lot more foreplay and then you're even more likely to premature ejaculate, your wife is going to have a lot of enjoyment out of your sex life if you don't just make it about, penetration, but holding and hugging and massaging and she can have an orgasm, which is, doesn't have to be timed to yours. So there are a lot of things that can go on. So Tammy, I was starting to read the next question. Why don't you read it and we'll.
Okay. I believe my partner has narcissistic personality disorder and is a sex addict. It's been really affecting me deeply. All the gaslighting and confusion is just intolerable, but I also see my participation as I have trauma and I want to control the dynamic. We are not married, nor even exclusive. He wants to keep it vague, but it's probably both of us. How can I walk away forever? I feel it will kill me if I don't, because it's severely impacting my life. I am in multiple programs. I know I need support. But do you have any thoughts about how I can get out of this? That is challenging.
Well, I want to start with the first one, which is that I've worked in this field for 30 years. I've seen maybe 1,000 men. And I can tell you that full-on narcissistic personality disorder, I may have seen 5. And most of them are not particularly functional in their lives. It is a really profound. We throw kinds of terms around all the time. She's crazy. She's bipolar, whatever it is. This is a very serious diagnosis. And so what Tammy said before, and I want to refer to it, is that people who are addicts are by nature narcissistic, because if my focus is what I want, when I want it, and I don't care about anybody else, and I'll lie and I'll cheat and I'll gaslight to get what I want, that's every addict I've ever met, whether they're looking for drugs or looking for sex, or it's just like, how can I ignore you and your feelings? By the way, addicts are not particularly empathic, just like narcissists. So addicts will say, we'll talk ourselves out of anything that, we'll talk ourselves out of empathy. We often don't have empathy. So my point is, an active addict and all the stuff you're explaining is part of active addiction. So I don't know, but I think narcissistic personality disorder would not be the first place I would go. The way I would look at it is that every addict has narcissistic traits, and I tend to hook up with narcissistic people, and they get worse when you're dealing with an addict. Lots of people have narcissistic traits, strong ones and ones that run off the rails when they're addicts, but it doesn't mean that they have a profound mental disorder. The other thing, boy, Tammy, I want to do a little tough love here, if you don't mind.
Please.
Because what I hear, I don't want to be with him. It'll kill me if I'm not with him, but it's severely acting. Well, let me say, it's both of us. How can I walk away forever? It will kill me if I don't, because it's severely impacting in my life. So just notice what you said. If the doctor told me if I kept running because I have a heart problem, I was going to drop dead, I probably would stop running because I didn't want to die. And so what you're saying, and I believe you, is that this is going to kill you, at least emotionally. So look at the comparison. How is it that you're telling yourself that psychologically you're going to die, and you've chosen to die on this particular hill? I'm in multiple programs. I need support. So this is where I do tough love.
I think the next piece that I'm acknowledging my love addiction. I don't know what to do. I think that might be tied to this. I'm not 100% sure, but I'd like you to also tie in what love addiction is.
But this person, if it's the same person, also said, I'm in multiple programs. So if you are in SLAA, you are talking about this. And obviously, I don't mean to be obvious, but obviously you have a problem with staying attached to people who are broken and will hurt you. And I can't think of a better place than SLAA. You said you're in multiple programs, and that kind of concerns me a little bit, because you can only, if let's say you're sober in AA for a while and you go to 3 meetings a week, maybe you could cut back on that a little bit to focus more on this. It's very hard to go to 2 meetings of this and 2 meetings of that and have 3 sponsors. And that's crazy making. Tammy's nodding her head, so I want you to say something about that. And I'm going to say my last one. What were you thinking about that, Tammy?
Well, yeah, ideally having a person who really knows you, because it's also easy to tell my S sponsor this and tell my AA sponsor that, and then you get kudos and all that, and you get conflicting information. So one person where you're transparent, but I also don't hear that you're working with a qualified professional. So both of those pieces.
I just want to add, so this is my tough love. If you wanted to give this up, you would do it. And I'm going to show you my tough love. Let's see if I can get it in the picture. So Tammy, you know what? Ask me to try to drop the pen.
Can you try to drop the pen? Try to drop the pen, Rob. Dr. Rob, please drop the pen. Try harder. You can do it.
Now,
Dr. Rob, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Drop the pen. Drop the pen.
I want to do it. I want to drop the pen. I know
you're
it's
not
bad
trying.
For me to
you're
hold
not
it.
trying.
I'm trying. Okay, now tell me.
Dr. Rob, drop the pen. Be willing to drop the pen. There you go.
It's just that. And I know it's not an option to say, I don't know how, I can't. You have to find a way to stop. And by the way, there are people in 12-step programs they will do couch duty with you. You can sit and sleep on their couch, or they will stay in your home. They can help you. I'll say one more thing. I love this, Tammy, and I hated it. I went to take a chip at an S meeting not that long ago, and there was a gentleman sitting across from me, and he was talking about, he shared, and he said, I am really struggling. And I said, I didn't say anything. Sorry, I was listening. And he said, this woman, I'm so obsessed with her, and she's all I can think about, and I'm worried. I'm constantly worried she's going to call or text, or what do I do? And what if, and I'm thinking, block her phone number, block her email, block, her text. You can do it if you are willing. You don't have to try. You can take little steps. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. Block this, block that. He's going to have to come to your house and knock on the door. And you can change your locks. So it's really about, to me, it's about willingness. Tammy said this before. How willing are you to start to take the steps? Not think about them, not worry. Or I guess I'll say one more thing. The idea of doing something that makes you anxious is always worse than actually doing it. The fear of, what's going to happen if I do this? And what's going to happen? And what if I hang out with those people? And what if? When you actually do it, it's not that bad. And maybe you need to start doing and not thinking. Worry less, do more. Drop the damn pen. Excuse my language, but this isn't impossible. You can start a little piece at a time, but you need a lot of support. You may need a sponsor call or therapist. I cut off the phone today and I want to kill okay, what are you going to do tomorrow? Yeah, so that's my thought. And I don't mean to be mean, but get your butt to work. You're kind of, I can't do this, and I don't know about that, and what am I going to do about this? It's like, just get to work, because it's not impossible. It just takes steps, not thinking, not reminiscing. It takes actually doing things. And you know that from your other programs. So, by the way, one more thing. Chips don't transfer for you 12-step people. Your chips don't transfer. So you can say,
I love that. I just mouthed it. No, I said, I love that. I have not heard that before. Go for it.
Well, it's just that people go into SLAA and they say, well, I've been going to AA for 15 years and I know these steps and I've sponsored people. It's like, well, but you're a beginner now because this is a different issue and you have to start all over again at the start. You know, it's like saying, I know how to ride horses, so I'm going to start driving a car. You need to learn how to drive the car. So don't expect that the knowledge, experience, and information you have from your other programs is going to necessarily be of use here. What is useful is knowing how to ask people to sponsor you, being comfortable at a meeting, knowing what a share is, knowing the literature. But the change you're trying to make is not going to come out of AA or other programs that you've worked, because those are for those issues. Yeah. I like when
Having a
it
three
sounding
circle
like.
plan about having a 3-circle plan about all of the issues so that you're aware of all of them and have one plan, not 16 different plans, is really helpful too. So I put in the chat, I put Gavin Sharp did a great webinar on boundaries for addicts and why we all need healthy boundaries. We talk all the time about this for betrayed partners, that you need healthy boundaries because you value you. And what Dr. Rob was saying is you're not valuing you. You're going, it may kill me, but I'm going to stay in this. One more thing, I hope you've learned in your recovery programs to be of service. The more we're out of ourselves and serving others and helping, we kind of forget about ourselves, but if all I am doing is focusing on the problem, which is the relationship and the person, guess what? My focus is down here on that.
Right.
And I'm missing all of this
That's
other
true.
stuff that's really good. So I would invite you to get out of yourself and do service work, for others. But really, if you are not working with a qualified professional, please, with multiple problematic behaviors, getting a plan that you can, because it's do something, but it's also have a plan so that you can be successful doing.
And I want to add one more thing. Accountability in this situation is essential. That I want to call, but my sponsor or my therapist, I have to tell them if I call. So it isn't just me alone making this call or reaching out. I am accountable to other people in order to, if I do this, I can do it, but I'm going to have to tell somebody else and they're going to say, well, that didn't go very well. And we'll have to review the whole thing all over again. So, one of the things that I've learned to do is I keep I'm not therapy right now. I used to keep my therapist in my head. And I would say, if my therapist saw me doing this, what would they say? And the answer usually came back, with something I didn't want to do. So what do we got?
Okay, next one. I was wondering today if it's possible to become addicted to friendships the way a sex addict is addicted to sex. If you have a friend you are obsessed with and want to please, is that a bad thing as bad as being in a sexual relationship you're obsessed with? I'm just curious. This doesn't apply to me anymore. It did in the past, but I'm very interdependent now and not reliant on one person as a friend anymore. That's well thought out.
Well, I don't know about addicted to. I don't believe people are addicted to people. I just don't believe that. I think people are get very addicted to behaviors and situations that leave them feeling all this intensity. I don't know the answer to your question. I can only speak more personally than professionally, which is when I was a lonely person and I made a friend. Oh my God, they were everything. I wanted to do things. I wanted to go out. Especially, and when I was younger, like in college, and I didn't have a lot of friends, boy, one person was just like, and I would drive them crazy. And I think you answered your question in some ways, which is to have different needs met by different people in different situations is healthy. One of the things, I'm going to move to marriage now, this comes up a lot, is I go to my wife for everything. I go to my husband for everything. And I understand that in terms of, what marriage and relationships are. But one of the things that we lose in that is when we're struggling, like with addiction, we don't have anyone to turn to. And so one of the things that addiction recovery does is it takes my obsession on this one person or this one set. But by the way, notice I use the word obsession and not the word addicted, because I think so what happens, we get obsessed with people. By the way, we also get obsessed with someone's drinking. We get obsessed with that. We're obsessed with their behavior, not the person. Anyway, I can understand in a relationship where that's all you got. What are you going to turn to when it's not working out? A lot of sex addicts go act out when their relationships aren't working. So I agree, just for everybody, that we need to be we have addicts strong dependency needs. A lot of our needs growing up were not met. That's how we ended up here. And if I place all my needs on one person, I am going to obsess. I am going to lose my mind because my mood and how I feel is so dependent on them. So yes, I think people are broken, people are lonely, people have vulnerabilities. They may be focused on the obsession of one person. And the way out is what you said, which is to find different people for different experiences so that you can spread out those needs and get them met by different people in different ways. But that's more personal than professional. I don't know, Tammy, anything you want to add?
I
I
know,
know you're
I
obsessed
mean,
with our friendship. I know
yeah,
you're obsessed with our friendship. So
yeah, I was thinking, thank God I have a lot of friends because, I would be a lot for my husband to have to deal with, on by himself. No, I am like, I get it. I'm, he appreciates that, I have different places to go and, 12 step. I was
right,
thinking, because I was in my meeting the other day, my personal 12 step, somebody was sharing, and I'll keep it really general, but they were talking about like, they're so concerned about other people liking them. And yeah, I shared with this person as I was leaving, I said, first of all, I give her a hug. And second of all, I said, like, I need to be me. And if people like me, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. And
right.
so being our true selves, and what I kind of feel like is, as you've done the work, you found who you are. And so then people can gravitate to you in different ways. But you can have that circle of friends and be interdependent. And that's an amazing thing. I mean,
It's a
to me,
great
that's the
word.
real gift of recovery is, but I can be my authentic self. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be one person for this person and this, I don't have to, because that's what we were in addiction, is the facade of people so that they would like us, or we didn't care, whatever, however it showed up for us. So, but I hear that you've made lots of progress, and that's amazing.
I want to just answer, I'm typing something in now as well.
Okay.
And what I'm typing in is a definition for interdependence, because this is the goal. This is a huge goal for recovery, is how do we not be overly dependent and yet completely separate? How do we come together and depend on each other and then move apart and then move back together? How can we interdependent? Because dependency has gotten a bad name. Maybe codependency has been part of that. And as everybody knows, I'm very pro dependency, but I'm not pro unhealthy dependency. I am in favor of us leaning on each other when we need the strength of another person or some skill they have, and then going out and using that on our own in the world. That's interdependence. So anyway, that is our goal. Lots of books written about that. Great word.
Mhm.
What we got, Tammy?
As the male porn addict who is struggling to maintain sobriety, only 20 days now, when I've been in SA 12 step for 14 months, what do I do when I think I'm telling the truth, but my female betrayed partner does not believe me, and they keep telling me that I am lying and gaslighting them? Do I just agree
Well,
with her to not rock the boat? That's the question.
number one, I wrote a book about this. We teach a course about this. Read it, take it. No men I've ever worked with fully understand how to help their partner come to peace with what they've done. We don't understand how to do that. I wrote a book for all men who cheat. I gave a course for all men who cheat because I want you guys to get, this is for the men who are in heterosexual relationships with women. And by the way, there's a Christian version of this book, if that is more where you're coming from. And it's called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. It is the most popular book I've written because men really want to understand, how do I make peace in this relationship? How do I now? That being said, you're 20 days sober. You've been going to program for 14 months and you're 20 days sober. Why in the world would this woman believe anything you say? You've been lying for a long time. You've been cheating for a long time. And by the way, when you say 20 days, do you think she no believes that? So I think until you get more time and you actively become a better person, which is who we become with time and program and therapy, she may not believe anything that you say, but she'll believe that you're working on it, that you're taking care of each other, doing your best. Um, I, I, as far as not rocking the boat, I'm not sure what that means, except here's how I would agree with her. And this is in the doghouse. Sorry, Tam, I interrupted, which
Oh,
is
no,
simply to say, so I'm in a relationship with you, and you've been lying to me for years and years. And you're an hour late coming home from the grocery store. There was traffic, there were lines, they didn't have what you wanted. It's all true. You were late. But you come home an hour late and you say, guess what? I got all the groceries and I stopped the dry cleaners, and I'm sitting there as a partner tapping my foot. And you say, gee, what's the matter? I did all this stuff. And you say, yeah, right. Like you got the groceries this afternoon, and then you went and acted out like you always used to when you were late. Every time you were late before, you were cheating. So even if you didn't cheat that night, it doesn't matter, because what your partner is saying is that they're used to a pattern that's very painful, and you have to acknowledge that. Stop trying to, you don't have to agree with what she said. You were acting out tonight. What you have to agree with is how she feels, which is, and I'll show you how it goes. I can only imagine how scary it is for you when I come home late. And even though that wasn't going on today and I'm working on my recovery, it may not be a good night. You may not want to talk to me. You may never believe me. And that's perfectly understandable. I get that you don't believe me, and I fully understand that. I'm not going to do anything to try to change your mind. That's the right answer. It isn't agreeing, yes, you're right. It's, I understand how you feel, and I absolutely understand why you feel this way. And I'm one more thing, no defending, no defending. That sounds like, um, what does defending sound like? I don't know what, you're always asking me that question. I don't know why we're going through this. I'm not, all that gaslighting, defending stuff. And don't apologize. Oh, I'm so, I didn't mean it. Yeah, you meant it. You meant to be a porn addict. You meant to do what you wanted. Well, I didn't mean to hurt you, but you knew you were. By the way, one more thing. You've been in SA, which I think is great, but there are programs just for porn. And I think that there's a reason why they exist, which is some porn addicts don't relate to the people in sex addiction meetings because they're doing very different behavior. So I'm not saying that you should leave your program, but there's SPAA, I think, Sex and Porn
yes.
Addicts Anonymous. And there might be another one. I don't
There's
remember.
PA and PAA. Yes. And I'll put the link for those resources on our,
And
because
don't
we
we
have
teach a
all,
porn?
I put that in there. Work groups for porn addiction
We also
101.
teach.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to rely on me. I write these courses. I'm involved with these courses. I train the people who teach these courses. You don't get this work anywhere else. Trust me. There's no one who educates. They do therapy. They support you. Go to the porn addiction class. Take a class. Then follow it up by the class on apologies. But at 20 days, you have a lot more work to do on yourself before you're ready to apologize in a meaningful way. So, and I hope, by the way, you told her that you're 20 days sober. I hope you told her that, because even though she'll hate your guts, at least there will be a difference. Every partner says, I hate that, I hate you. But there's a part of me that thinks, well, I've never heard that before. They never came to me and told me. And there's something that shifts there for spouses when they realize that they don't have to make up reality anymore, that they're hearing it. And that can be very helpful. So I hope you told her in some healthy way.
Yes, because I was doing the same thing, 20 days out of 14 months, and then all the time before that. So 20 days is truly the very beginning. And you haven't, with like, yay for 20 days as a person in recovery, but you haven't shown that you can sustain that, So I 100% agree. And I put the information, on Seeking Integrity, Porn Addiction 101 starts. And if all the acting out has been pornography online, not any physical contact, that's the right fit. We have a Sex Addiction 101 that starts on Saturday. So if there has been other acting out behaviors, that would be a better fit. Just leaving that to you. But you will have a 3-circle plan. You will have solid foundation. Those are all live facilitated, low cost, work groups, 90 minutes a week, and you will have peer connections and real help to get a foundation. It's not a therapy or treatment.
And I want to add to that. You can go to all therapy in the world, you can go to 12-step programs, but learning, actually hearing people teach this information, not reading, but hearing objectively, and having homework, I think can be, that's why we set this up, because we know it makes a difference. Okay, let's answer. I'm looking forward to the next one, actually.
I'm reading your book right now, and my question is, and I'm assuming this is Sex Addiction 101, is there a stage someone can be caught in between at risk and addict?
Actually, this is something we wrote about, Tammy, in a number of books, and Dr. Schneider and I wrote about this, but I'm pretty sure it's in Sex Addiction 101. So let me explain the stages. And I'm going to talk about porn. It could be talking about going to a strip club. It could be about, but I'll use it in terms of porn. The first stage is entertainment. You know, I like to look at a bit of porn. I like, with the guys, I go to a strip club occasionally. I'm not married, or my spouse knows about whatever that is. You know, and it's just entertainment for me. It's fun once in a while. For me, going to Vegas, I take my $100, I win, I lose, I don't care. It's fun. That's it for me. I'm not a compulsive gambler. So the first stage is entertainment. The second stage is at risk. And that means someone who, under difficult circumstances, can find themselves doing it a lot. In other words, my mother passed away, and I've spent the last 3 months looking at porn every other day. Now, it may wane over time, but that tells me I'm at risk for ending up repeating this behavior to the point where it is really addictive. And then there's addicts. You know, we start out early, we continue it until we're stopped, you know, all of that. I will say this, though. I'm going to go back and tell a little story. I had a man in group once, group therapy years ago, who someone in the group said, "Do you think I should do this, or do you think I should do that in group therapy?" And this guy turned around, he said, "You know, I don't think about whether I should go to work today. I don't think about whether I should eat today. I don't think about whether I should go on vacation next year. But I find, as an addict, that when I am questioning whether I should do something or shouldn't do something, it's probably something I should take a good look at, because I'm already questioning myself." And so I say to you, with all due respect, if you're asking yourself this question and you're in this world that we live in, Tammy and I, called addiction, I'm probably, you're not at risk. You're asking yourself a meaningful question, and obviously there's some reason it's affecting your life, and you've shown up here. And trust me, most people do not want to show up here, as wonderful as we are. The last thing I'll say is, I ran a practice where I had a bunch of therapists, and I did this work forever. And I honestly believe, in all those years and all those people, I don't think a single person came in by accident. I do not think that I ever had a client who was just have a relationship problem or just a little too much porn. Everyone walked through that door because they had a meaningful problem. And I don't think you would be here asking this question unless there was a pretty meaningful problem, my guess.
I posted in the chat, there's a self-assessment. You can go take a, and that's that's a spectrum. So you can, if you score a 3, that's very different than if you score a 12, So I think that'll give you some indication of where you are scoring, and then the resources can be applicable for where you are on that. And that's just a quick self-screening. Like when the guys come to our treatment program, we do far more assessments, but it's a good indicator.
Well, I want to add, this would be typical for Tammy to say, I don't know that by myself I can ever figure this stuff out, because I've talked myself into a lot of things I shouldn't be doing. So I think what I don't hear is objectivity. We talk about 12-step programs in therapy, but who is in your world who, when you say, this is how often I'm looking at porn, this is what I'm looking at, this is how long it takes, is there someone in your world who will tell you the truth? Is there someone in the world who will say, that's a problem, because you can go see a professional who is skilled in this? TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. We make a lot of referrals. We do not get kickbacks, but we know who the porn people are. We know who the experts are. And you could also, again, take the porn course, see if you belong there, if it makes sense to you. Take the sex addiction course. But I don't think that on our own, we're necessarily able to have the objectivity to make those decisions. And I can't tell you, because I've never met you. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know about your life, but there are people who can walk into their office, and if you go to a lot of 12-step meetings, you will either hear yourself or will you say, I don't belong here. But you have to go enough times to get that. So.
Okay, the next one, thoughts on ability to have yet another disclosure without need for therapists wanting thousands of dollars we don't have. Instead, having a CSAT review his formal disclosure that I have already responded with my emotional impact letter, and then his emotional restitution letter that we both have already read and agreed to prior to his poly. Do you feel this should be enough to have, we have financial restraints?
Tammy, I don't fully understand the question.
I have so much, I'm going to be really careful in my response. Why have yet another disclosure? I am. Why do this if like, this is just, you're on a merry-go-round. Why have one until there is really meaningful change? I mean, you get to pick. I just sent somebody a whole bunch of information because they were asking me about polygraph. It is a coin toss. I did a lot of research on that, so I am very opposed
Well,
to basing
Tammy,
your relation
tell
on
them
that.
tell them what's a coin toss. I don't think you articulated. What's the
I
coin toss?
You're basing your relationship on the outcome of something that's likened to a coin toss. A polygraph measures stress,
Polygraph.
not honesty. Yes, it measures stress, not honesty. You can absolutely do a DIY disclosure. My bigger concern is why, if this is another one, and you're going to keep doing it, and why do one until the behaviors have stopped? That's my biggest issue. But Dr. Rob does a peer case consultation group with professionals weekly. The most talked about item across, I mean, almost every week, a professional brings a disclosure to the table for discussion. It, to me, is not a do-it-yourself thing. You absolutely, but everybody gets to pick their journey. I do not I don't think polygraphs, there's no protocol, there's no efficacy test, there's no research, there's no plan on how do you do this. Do you do it before the formal disclosure? Do you do it after? There's a whole bunch of questions that you cannot ethically ask and typically get asked, even though the Polygraph Association, says that they're unethical. So this whole thing is fraught with, I mean, I don't have a plan, because if he passes the polygraph and whatever, what is the plan? If he doesn't pass, I mean, are you going to believe it either way? And what are you really searching for with this disclosure if you've been doing this before? So this is sad to me,
Yeah,
because it feels like a merry-go-round of negativity. So
and money. And
yeah,
money. I don't think any C-section, well, I don't want to say it. Let me say this. What I don't hear in here, and I always look for what I don't hear as well. I do hear, I don't hear anything about your relationship. I don't hear that we're getting along well. We're really working on, we feel good about each other. We're both moving forward. There's nothing other than this focus on this narrow piece. And that's sort of what I understand disclosure. I get, the need, the restitution letter, but recovery in a coupleship is so much bigger than that. In fact, I would rather have an incomplete disclosure and hear the truth going forward than I care about what happened before. And I know, believe me, every spouse wants to know what happened, what was my history, what have I been through? Absolutely. But that's about, what do I not know and what have I not known about my relationship in order to go forward? Trust me, you know enough. You know enough. Unless there was something huge like a rape or something really awful, you know what the general theme is, you know what they did, you know where they did it, you know the kind of thing they did. I would be much more invested in, I need your honesty now. I need you to be honest with me going forward. I need to see you doing the right things for recovery. To me, nailing someone to the wall and trying to get the absolute truth from them is not where the healing begins. The healing begins when I understand that there's a profound problem that we're both working on and we're committed to healing it. So to me, this reads like a paragraph from a therapy book, but it doesn't tell me anything about the two of you and what are your goals and how do you feel about each other, and which is what matters to me. So
okay,
we have
one more
time we don't
question.
have time, but let's take it anyway, Tammy.
We're going to do it. Can someone be a love addict and a sex addict, or a love addict that is not also a sex addict? I'm confused about the criteria of love addiction. All the resources, such as short online diagnostic questionnaires, I have found have been focused on sex addiction. What differentiates being a love addict? I hear a lot of times partners go, I'm a love addict. And I'm like, you are not a love addict. You love someone who's broken.
Right.
But
You just
so
love a
if you
jerk.
can, yeah, well, it's somebody who's struggling. So
Right.
clarify again, please, because this comes up and it was brought up earlier too.
Well, let me go back and say there are some wonderful, one of my favorite books on love addiction is the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous Big Book, which means the book that when you go into the program, they give you and say, here's what we're all about, or you buy it. In AA, they give you a big book and say, here's the history, this is what we're all about, here's what everyone's done so far, and here's how you get better. There's one in SLA as well. And what I love about Sex and Love Addicts big book is they tell a lot of stories from a woman who's a sex addict, a sex and love addict, a man who's a sex and love addict. So I think hearing the perspectives of other people, I think going to some meetings to SLAA and just listen to what other people are struggling with. I also, Tammy, books like Brenda Schaefer, or there are books about love addiction. It may not be a test. It may be reading, learning and hearing more discussed about it. Do we have a love addicts group? I don't even know now that I think about it. I don't think we do.
Well, so it depends. We have drop-in groups, and it's sex, porn, love addicts, and the female is sex, love, and there's more in the female group. There's a higher ratio of people identifying as love addicts.
Right, because women will obsess more on the relationship and men will obsess more about the sex. But here's how I look at Tammy. This is what Tammy's looking for. I think of love addiction as graduate school for sex addiction. Sex addiction is focusing on body parts like your butt or your arms, and if I can get that person and all their parts to respond to me and desire me, maybe only once, then I've achieved the goal, which is the objectification of this person sexually. I have achieved that. But love addiction is more objectifying the person altogether. And the way that usually plays out is I don't know someone very well. I'm looking for love, and I'm not really looking at them very clearly. I'm just looking at someone who might fill, as Tammy says, this hole in my soul. And 6 months later, I say, who are they? Why am I with this person there? But I don't see it because my need is so great that I'll put whoever I can in that spot. So love addiction to me is about looking for a person who will admire and leave me feeling loved. But I forget to even look at who they are. I look for what they're doing for me. And I just want to say one more thing about Tammy just said. Because a spouse, a partner, a wife, a husband picks an addict, that doesn't mean that you're addicted to us or you're obsessed with us. It may well be you just got in a relationship where all this crap happened and here you are. You love us because you love us. Now, if you keep having 4 to 6 week patterns or 3 month or 6 month in, out, yes. But if you're in a long-term relationship with one of us, it's not about love addiction. It's about actually loving us and having the hope that things will get better. So, yeah, that's a good note to end on, don't you think?
Yeah, no, that is. And it kind of addresses the previous question too, with the person who identified as, a love addict and in a problematic relationship. So thank you all for being here and asking great questions. Thank you, Dr. Rob. As always, it's great to work with you.
Sure.
And we'll see everybody.
Great.
But again, Sex Addiction 101 starts Saturday. Join if it would be a good fit for you. Bye, everybody.
Oh, and spouses, if you want to see your husband, it's man only, right? You want to see your husband actually doing things, sign them up. Well, may ask them to sign themselves up for
it's a healthy boundary for me to help rebuild trust, if you would sign up for this work group and participate. It's an easy enough ask. Bye, everybody.
And then they got a gold relationship star. See you
for the
later.
moment.